Have you ever longed for a better, more customized, and personalized doctor patient relationship? Do you sometimes want to be heard for more than 10 minutes with a doctor who really wants to get to the root cause of your health challenge rather than to only prescribe the side effect laden, powerful medication to treat the symptoms only? Today's guest has pioneered innovation in the doctor patient relationship. Stay tuned to hear about the higher level of service and relationship that he now offers. Dr. Ken Redcross is a board certified internal medicine physician. He provides the ultimate patient experience for those frustrated with the deterioration of the patient doctor relationship. Embracing natural and alternative methods of healing in his practice, Dr. Redcross firmly believes proactive treatment is the goal. When medical challenges arise, he creates a health strategy that supports the whole person. His concierge approach has led to the development of an impressive following of patients from the entertainment industry, sports world, and business leaders from Los Angeles to New York City. Dr. Redcross has reached tens of millions of people through media appearances, including The Doctors, Entertainment Tonight, and The Nancy Grace Show. He has been a medical expert for CNN Travel, appeared regularly on HLN Weekend Express, and has contributed articles for digital health and wellness companies, including Everyday Health. His diverse practice has included the elderly, migrant farm workers, and patients battling heroin addiction. He participated in fellowships in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, contributing to his proficiency in Spanish. In 2001, Dr. Redcross completed his medical training at the prestigious Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center. He subsequently provided care in rural Oxnard, California, then transitioned to the renowned Cedars Sinai Medical Center in Beverly Hills, and finally created his concierge practice in 2007 and also established his wellness company, Ken Redcross Communications. In his book, Bond, The Four Cornerstones of a Lasting and Caring Relationship with Your Doctor, Dr. Redcross highlights the four cornerstone qualities essential to creating a lifelong patient doctor bond. Bond was the Amazon #1 new release in medicine and psychology. Dr. Redcross has received many honors, to include the Man of Valor Award from the NAACP Youth Council for Excellence in Medicine, Top 25 Concierge Physician in the U.S., and Educator of the Year by the Nutrition Business Journal. Currently, Dr. Redcross focuses on utilizing the BOND program to consult with health networks and companies to provide their customers with better outcomes. He also serves as a patient and family advocate who educates, empowers, and offers peace of mind. Dr. Redcross says with the correct balance of nutrition, movement, and spirituality, we can live our best life experience. Welcome, Dr. Ken Redcross, to the Voice of Leadership and to Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Dr. Karen. I'm so excited to be able to share this important message to all of you because there's one thing that unites all of us, Dr. Karen, is no matter what, we're all going to be a patient at some point. And that's why I think my message is so important.
Oh, I would agree with you. Your message is vital. And so thank you for being here
Thank
to
you.
share with many people who may not have heard about what you do. And I'm going to start right there and ask you, I know you are a concierge physician.
Mhm.
What does that mean? How are you different from other physicians?
So look, everyone, when you think of concierge medicine or myself as a concierge physician, think about when you go to this favorite hotel you like to go to with your family or when you're on trips. What do you look for? You look for the concierge to kind of direct you to the go-to places. And so it's kind of what I do on the healthcare side of things. But being a concierge physician, I'm able to impart three important things: access, convenience for you, and the time that you need as well. So a concierge is very similar to that in the hotel where we're supposed to know where to direct you to these fabulous places where you're going to be happy and feel healthy from what I'm bringing.
I actually love that because most people probably are not thinking about going to the doctor as being a premier experience of going to their favorite hotel. So I know that in many ways, one way I describe you as a medical consultant. And so, how
Mhm.
does being a consultant allow you to work virtually across geographical boundaries and to scale your business and impact?
Look, I've been in practice, everyone, for over 2 decades now. And so I've been able and been fortunate and blessed enough to take care of patients literally on each coast and even in the middle of the US as well. And so what I'm finding is that with all of these years of practice is like now I'm trying to scale my message a bit more. And now that I can actually provide consultancy for direction in these three buckets that I talk a lot about, it allows me to be able to kind of be a little bit of everywhere to where I can talk to a patient who's in the Basque region of Spain all the way up to Ontario in Canada as well. So it's allowed me to impart more of my message to certain areas that may not have heard it and didn't understand the importance of it then.
Okay, that's wonderful. So people can really call you, they can contact you from anywhere in the globe, and you're able
Absolutely.
to give them advice and counsel and consultation about medicine.
Absolutely. And about the direction and about really as a big part of what I do, Dr. Karen, is on the advocacy, what you deserve, what you should be receiving, different ways to think about what your challenges may be and so forth. So it allows me to be able to put a little bit of a different spin on how you should be taken care of.
I really appreciate that, Dr. Redcross. So let me ask this. What did you find lacking in traditional medical practice, and what inspired you to create something different?
Oh my gosh, Dr. Karen, how much time do we have?
Well, you
So
don't have to answer it all in one question. I got
exactly, I
plenty
can
of
do it in
follow-ups
chunks.
for
I
you.
can do it in chunks.
Get
All
little
right.
pieces.
So let me try to wrap up the 20 years of frustration I had before I transitioned. So look, everyone, I realized earlier in my career, once I was finally done, like you said, I trained here at Columbia in the city many moons ago, that when I first started my practice, for some reason, I felt empty. I felt that something was missing. I mean, the delivery of patients was great because that's what I feel like my God-given calling is, but I didn't feel like something was complete. So it took me a while, Dr. Karen, to kind of realize what I was missing was that connection. The connection that was so important for me as an only child and a lover of medicine who loves to talk. I didn't have a chance for that communication and that connection. And it took me some years to realize that's why I'm not as fulfilled as I feel I should be. And if I'm not as fulfilled, and I'm saying it that way on purpose because I want you to feel full, then the patient can't be fulfilled either. And something had to give. And I had to think a lot on it. I had to pray on it. I had to figure out what did I need to do differently? What did that look like? And I was fortunate enough that sort of came to me a little bit later in my career, what I had to do. And that was concierge medicine before there was a name to concierge medicine in 2007.
I think it's really significant what you said about missing the communication piece
Yeah.
because a lot of patients feel the same way that they're missing the communication piece with their doctor. And so it's interesting that you, as the physician, were also feeling a missing piece, not having the depth of communication that you would actually prefer. And I know you've worked with a lot of different populations. So I'm going to ask you about a few of them just to get a little feel for what that those experiences contributed. So, for example, you worked with migrant workers, you worked with heroin addicts and those on
Sure.
the margins. How did that work influence your perspectives?
Let me tell you, this is interesting. I'm so fortunate to have touched so many different souls in so many different ways, the way you're talking about. But no matter where I was, whether I was in the heroin clinic or with the migrant Mexican farm workers or in Beverly Hills, everyone wanted the same thing. They wanted to feel someone was listening to them on the other side of the stethoscope. They wanted to be feel like they were cared for. They wanted the same connection that I was trying to get for them. So it helped me understand that it didn't matter where we were in our walks of life, that the same thing that I wanted to deliver to them didn't matter. And all three deserved it equally. and how to learn how to deliver that no matter where I was, that my message would resonate, and that I would be able to, as I said before, touch as many souls as possible to really change the trajectory of their life experience.
I love that. Changing the trajectory of their life experience and kind of like the notion that we all deserve the best in some way is what
Absolutely.
I really hear you talking about. So I know that when you were working in Beverly Hills, you had exposure to clients of great financial means. So what did you learn from them and how did a connection with wealthy clients even inspire the work that you do now?
You know, Dr. Karen, I loved how you're asking that particular question because so much of what you do is on the business side of things. And what
Yeah.
was interesting for me, everyone, is that I started to have to figure out as a businessman how I would be okay taking the money or taking finance for something that I feel I'm blessed to do. So as a business owner, here I am with this business and I'm trying to grow and grow, but I'm dealing with a little bit of guilt. I'm dealing with, gosh, I feel blessed to do this, but should I be getting this? Am I leaving others out who can't afford that? And so I went through all this sort of just trajectory or going up and down about how should I best deliver the business? How do I best grow my business? So what I started to learn was something that I created called conscious capitalism, which means it's not bad to make a good living. It's not bad to try to grow your business. And so I had to wrestle with that internally as a business person to say, you know, the same care that I'm giving here in Beverly Hills, I was given to the migrant Mexican farm workers or to those challenged with heroin addiction at the time, that I'm still trying to do the same thing. But this is where the good Lord put me for this time, for this season, to be here helping these folks in different ways.
I think I remember a story from one of your Beverly Hills clients, how you did a house call.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about the house call and how they thought about the payment for it.
Well, let me tell you. So it's so interesting. So I'll tell you, and because of that, Dr. Ken, I made that a part of my practice even now to this day. And one of the things, and it was unique, it was the way kind of my concierge got started, everyone. I had a young lady, she was an assistant for some big producer at one of the movie production companies. Long story short, he was busy, didn't feel well, but couldn't get out to the doctor. I don't know what happened. Just epiphany was, hey, I'll come see him after I get out of work. It's like, what? This is 2007, 2006. So I go there, I show up, I'm coming in, I have a stethoscope. Everybody's in cubicles. That's the way it is in Hollywood when you go into the studios. And they're looking at me walk through with my stethoscope, and he's like, who are you? And I'm like, well, I'm the doctor. And she was like, really? So we talked. He knew, he was like, look, I already know what I want. I just need an antibiotic, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm on a holistic side, so I would have talked a little differently to him now. But he was elated at the service that I brought him and that convenience. And the flip side was that I was equally elated. So he asked me, what do I owe you, doc? And I had no idea, Dr. Karen. I said, $100. He's like, $100? Are you kidding me for this? So he wrote me this huge check. And that was when I realized, oh my gosh, would people pay for convenience, access, time, and be as happy as he was, as I was? And that's where I kind of got started. Once again, just a blessing, not even thinking that at the time. And then from there, it's never been the same.
I love that story because if you save someone time, if you make something convenient, that is worth a lot to the person who
Yes,
was getting that convenience and that blessing. He didn't have to go sit in the doctor's office and waste
right,
time, travel or whatever. And he's getting the best of what you bring brought
right.
right to this doorstep. So I think that's wonderful. I remember years and years and years ago, doctors used to make house calls
Right.
anyway. So we just have a new version of it, perhaps,
Yeah, medicine has changed so much. It's a little more some corporatization of medicine. So the house calls aren't as possible for other docs as it is for me, luckily.
Well, I'm so glad that you're able to do it and that you can serve a population that really appreciates it as well. So let me ask about another population. I know that you really care about the elderly. So what are some of the special concerns of the elderly and how do you serve them?
So on the elderly side of things, Dr. Karen, so everyone, I go to an assisted living facility 1 day a week to the dementia unit as well. That is so important. It's where because my practice is very small and bespoke, everyone. So when I'm able to go to the assisted living facility, I have more patients there, and it allows me to, like to say, press flesh, right? To sit there and feel the energy of souls as well. And when you talk about those who have seen years, I don't call them seniors. I say those who have seen years is what I say to them. It's just a wealth of wisdom. It's just once again paying it forward, thinking, setting up my journey in different ways and so forth. And so when I'm there to be there with the elderly, I'm also able to help those in the sandwich generation, such as myself, guys. You're sandwiched in between older parents, younger children, and you're sandwiched in between trying to do your thing and carry your business along as well. So it allows me to be a valuable resource for the sandwich generation because I know what you go through. I know when you have parents at home and some challenges and don't know what to do. I know when you're trying to balance that with your kids who need to talk to you and so forth. So being there, spending time with the elderly allow me to bring so many wonderful things and keeps me happy as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you talked about the fact that the elderly have wisdom, the seniors
Mhm.
have wisdom to share. So you're benefiting too. It's like a two-way exchange in a lot of ways. And you get a chance to thank those who've gone before and to treat them with dignity and respect. And I
Mhm.
know that there are many other cultures across the globe that really do, I would say, reverence in some way those who are the elders in the organization, in the
Mhm.
community, in the village or whatever.
Right.
And so your way of honoring the elders in the village. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for that. So we know that suicide among physicians is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
What is fueling this epidemic and how are you supporting your colleagues who may be feeling suicidal?
As I mentioned earlier or a few minutes ago about the corporatization, for lack of a better word, of medicine, doctors are in a sense becoming a little bit of a cog in the wheel, right? They're not able to deliver the care that they always wanted to. Is the reason why we spend 10 years of our lives training to do this or more. And so what happens is that unfortunately doctors have started to become a little more disenchanted with what they're doing. We spend almost a quarter of our life training, and this isn't what you kind of thought it was. You feel like there's no way out. You're really an employee when maybe you didn't want to be an employee. So your dreams are hard to live out. And unfortunately, the statistic that you talked about is an important one. And so one of the things I'd like to do is to connect with younger physicians to prepare for what medicine kind of is right now, so you can learn how to navigate the waters, as I was fortunate and blessed enough to do. Also, to some of the older physicians or physicians around my age to understand that there's different ways to use our medical degree. I'm a brand spokesman for several wellness companies. I'm an influencer for an elder care clothing company. So I like to always provide hope and inspiration. And I know what my colleagues have been through, and I know I can help them, just like I can with those who have elderly people around them. And so I've chosen things that I know I can impart my wisdom, my energy to, in my direction and support to. And so that's why I'd like to allow my colleagues to understand like there's someone that's just like you out there who can make your life better and be another ear to talk to as well.
You know, one thing about that is sometimes people experience difficulty because their expectations about reality is real different from what they're living and what they're
Hmm.
experiencing. And so one of the things that you're doing is you're providing some education to say, here's what it's like out there right now. Here's
Hmm.
what to expect. And at the same time, you're casting a bigger vision of what's possible.
Hmm.
Maybe the old way isn't the only way to leverage and utilize the background and training and experience that they have. And people don't
Absolutely.
have to feel stuck. So I love the way that you are thinking about that and the way that you are going about that process. And I'll ask you this with a lot of physicians that I know who have been trained more traditionally in
Hmm.
Western medicine, typically and historically, at least in my life, minus a few exceptions, have not been as open about alternative medicine. So I want to
Hmm.
find out, how did you become open and educated about alternative medicine? And how did you even use vitamins and supplements and other approaches during the pandemic to make a difference?
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So this is interesting, everyone. So as I told you, I trained here at Columbia, so I bleed Columbia blue, Western medicine, right? So I go out to California and I have some patients who are coming in, guys, and they're healing and doing well with acute things such as aches and pains and colds and so forth without a prescription. And I didn't know what they were doing, what they were taking, and some of them were taking homeopathy and other sort of supplements. So just so you guys know, when I went to training, we had 1 week of nutrition. 1 week. All right. It may have changed now, so don't beat me up, medical directors, now, because I think we're starting to see the light. But I started to see patients were getting better for things for flu-like symptoms. That just whether you know it or not, in Beverly Hills, a little bit of plastic surgery is done. Some of the plastic surgeons were giving something called arnica out, which helps with pain, swelling, and bruising, and they were getting results. And so it was like this new thing was open to me because I didn't have to worry about certain things with some of the medicines that I like to say are closer to the earth. I didn't have to worry about drug to drug interactions. I didn't have to necessarily worry with some of the creams that they smelled like menthol, that I had to worry about dosages and so forth. Things are different sometimes on the holistic side of healing. To your other point, it also kind of hit home when I was back in New York now, and I was fortunate and blessed enough to get that education award when I talked about the importance of vitamin D for brown and black folks in particular during the pandemic, and later bore out how important that was for outcomes and to do well or not do well, depending on where you were with vitamin D. So, throughout my career, I've been fortunate enough to kind of see it for myself, learn more, educate myself around it. And now my practice is heavily more on the holistic side of healing, with the fortunate ability to be able to call on my Western medicine when I need it for all the years of training. So I can mix the both. So I'm not down on pharma. Pharma's horrific. They serve a purpose too. I'm about love for everybody. So you'll never hear me say a negative word, Dr. Karen. But my point is we can do all this together. And that's what I'm able to do in my consultancy. I'm able to blend all of what my knowledge is on the wellness holistic side and on the Western side as well.
I love that. I mean, I love the fact that you blend it all together. I know in my own personal life, I've had to blend it in multiple people. So I have my alternative doctor, I have my alternative
Awesome.
nutritionist who's really board certified in the natural and holistic side of things on the nutrition end, and then I have my traditional physician as well. And currently I've got it so that all three are open to each other and willing to learn together
Beautiful.
and from one another, which is the first time I've been able to curate such a great group. We cross all those boundaries, and so within you they can get all of that in one person. That's a good
Absolutely. That's what I aim
thing.
to deliver and aim to please.
You know what? It's needed, and more people are seeking those kinds of services because many, and I'm one of those who fits in this category, I just have, negative reactions sometimes to a lot of pharmaceuticals.
Oh,
And
sure.
so, a kinder, gentler approach works better for some people. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being
Absolutely.
open to learning and to a new path of education along the way. So I want to ask you, what about post-pandemic? What are your concerns about healthcare and the health world in the post-pandemic region and era? I mean, of course, we knew during the pandemic people needed vitamin D. What are you seeing that people are struggling with? What do they need now?
I think now everyone had a little bit of fatigue from COVID. As you know, it became very political. Unfortunately, it's a public health thing. I don't think it should be political, whatever side of the aisle everyone is on. And so I think everyone has a little bit of fatigue. And I just don't want us to turn the blind eye to COVID. I mean, I'm still seeing it. Thank God it's not as serious for a lot of patients I've dealt with because a lot of them are vaccinated or already have antibodies if they weren't. So it's just to make sure that, that we recognize it's still out there, that the flu still exists as well, and just to still be mindful and to try to fight some of that COVID fatigue. I get it. I really and truly do. But once again, it's about making sure that, we keep everyone healthy around us, back to the elderly. When I'm dealing with those who are maybe around my age and their beliefs and so forth, don't forget you have an elderly person. probably in your life, either at home or somewhere. You want to think about them as well. So I just want everyone to still be conscious. I get the fatigue aspect, but let's recognize it's still around there and continue the vitamin D. That story hasn't changed.
Okay, thank you. Tell us about a near death experience that you had that also informed how you live and practice today.
Oh, sure. So everyone, one of the things that was important to me when I moved from New York to California is that I'm very entrepreneurial. So I had a business in Sacramento as well as I was in LA, and I would fly to Sacramento and I would fly every week because I was the COO for a company I started, which was like a minute clinic sort of facility before Minute Clinic came because we thought it was going to be important to be able to provide that sort of care. So I would go back and forth, not probably taking care of myself, doing too much, living on the plane. And so one day I wasn't feeling well during the week, wasn't really eating a lot. I felt weak, a little short of breath. I just thought maybe I had a pneumonia. I wanted to go in to the ER with the docs that I knew at Beverly Hills with me and say, guys, I just need an x-ray, confirm I have a pneumonia, I need an antibiotic, I have to get to Sacramento. Not smart, right, guys? You're like a pneumonia, like it's nothing. So I go in there, get the x-ray is negative. And I'm like, well, I'm a little short of breath and fatigue. It can't be that. So they decide, Ken, let's just do an EKG. And I'm a big fitness person, everyone. I work out 5 days a week. I'm a CrossFitter and so forth. Well, the EKG said acute heart attack. And I said, no, you have to rerun that. That's something's wrong with that machine. They do it again, says acute heart attack. So I go into the cath lab. They go, they look, they do what's called a catheterization, everyone. They go and look at the arteries of the heart. And my arteries were open. In fact, I was awake to watching them. And I'll never forget me calling my mom and how distraught she was. I'm an only child, and she's so distraught. And I'm looking at the arteries in my heart, which are open. So come to find out, I had this syndrome called Takasobu's, which comes only from stress, or what I now say the S word, because I don't say the word stress. I'm saying it for the purposes of the show here, Dr. Karen, but it's only from the S word because adrenaline that you've heard of, they're called catecholamines, everyone, but adrenaline, everyone knows, it damaged the heart muscle. So I didn't know before I got on that flight, I was in heart failure. The doctors there that all know me, they were like, you are a walking angel. Like, you're not supposed to be here. Your heart's only operating at 20%. You probably would have arrested in the flight or something, or when you got there. And so I had to stop practicing for a bit. I had to kind of come off the field. I was homebound for a few months while I dealt with heart failure. Took all these meds, Dr. Karen, felt terrible, felt horrible. But it was when my spiritual epiphany came. Before that, everything was about growing the business and seeing patients and trying to figure it out and not the focus where it should have been because I had to take that time off and started to recognize that all of what I've done and why I was born wasn't about me. It was about you today and you viewers today. It was about all the people whose souls I was able to touch. And so I was able to then take that time off. And I think the greater creator was like, now you understand why you're here, what you're supposed to do. And that was when my spiritual epiphany came and I started to realize that my life is not my own necessarily. It's all those people I'm fortunate enough to touch from today until I'm, no longer. And that was when I started to realize what I was missing in healthcare and why I was probably running around to find happiness because I didn't feel like I was getting it with the relationships because I'm rushing. Patients don't get the time. The facility wants you to see 40 people. They're gonna, they're doing all these things that are not doctorly. And I didn't realize that my happiness that I was missing was because I needed to be still and I needed to live out my life's purpose. And that's when I started Bond, which took me a few years to write and share some of my stories and understand my bigger calling. It just took a near-death event to happen, but obviously I had a much bigger purpose.
Hi, this is Dr. Karen, dropping into today's show to remind you that one of the most important roles of an executive leader is to quickly make big and right decisions for the business. Are you looking for an experienced and trusted advisor to come alongside you as a thinking partner as you make those decisions? Then contact me at Dr. Karen, Karen, at transleadership.com. Now, back to the show. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Redcross, for really sharing how you got to this purpose and calling and how faith informs your journey. I'm sure that this enriches to a great extent what it is that you do day to day at this point. So I really
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you are a physician and your name is Dr. Redcross. Tell us about the rich history of your name and even some of the challenges that you faced as a result of
Oh
your name.
my, oh my. First of all, my last name is Redcross. Shows you the good Lord's got a sense of humor. Number one. It's so interesting. I grew up with the name Red Cross, everyone, and so I know Red Crosses. And so it was no big deal to me until I got to medical school and they stopped class to say, "Is there a Red Cross person in here?" I didn't put it together because I'm the first doctor in my family. So I didn't think about all of it. But anyway, it's a Native American name. I grew up in Virginia, everyone, but it's a small tribe out of Maryland, a Monacan tribe. So I remember going to a powwow as a child and so forth. So I think that also kind of leads me on the holistic side of healing as well, just from ancestry and feeling inside and spiritually, because it's such an important part of me. And what's interesting is that I've been fortunate enough to do interviews like this to share my message, share my dream. And so my message and dream got big enough one time to the point to where I got a 13-page cease and desist letter. I thought it was a fraternity brother, everyone, playing too extensive of a practical joke. But no, this was a document or a serving cease and desist from the American Red Cross, if you can believe that. And so unbelievably, they were saying that I couldn't use my name when I'm on air, that it was their name. And so, thank God we have a family historian who married a Red Cross. She thought it was such a fabulous name. She did all this research. And the first Red Cross was 1787, John and Lucy. John was native, Lucy was African American. And so we were able to trace it back to see the papers, which was pretty cool when you see the Red Cross S's with that 1700 kind of swirl. So I showed that to the Red Cross. They authenticated that in fact was my name, but they told me it doesn't matter. We bought it. So not great, not great. An organization that unfortunately I learned a lot about. Won't go there here, but not the way I thought they were. As an organization, kind of made life difficult for a year for me as far as what I do. What am I to do? I'm a physician. My last name is Red Cross. This is what I do for a living. What am I supposed to do with that? So I took a lot of spiritual talks and thinking and prayers to say, why is this happening? What am I to do with this and so forth? So after about a year or so, I was able to get to a point to where I was able to kind of transition on to what I needed to do with some unfortunate changes. I had a certain business that was doing quite well that they pretty much led to that shutting down. And so once again, you don't know why some of these challenges and so forth come up, but I'm so fortunate and blessed to have this name that I'm so proud of. And so I wasn't going to bend on that. And so for whatever that part or that time in my life was for, or why that was part of my journey, some things are bigger than what things look like in the world of form that we live in. There's a bigger spiritual reason that that occurred. And so all I can do is just be grateful that I'm here with you today and that I'm continuing to evangelize my message and hopefully change a lot of people's lives when it comes to the patient-doctor relationship.
That is really a serious consequence that it actually caused the closing of a business that you had because of this
Yeah,
name situation,
yeah,
even though you could prove that your name predated their use of the name. I find that amazing. How could someone
Yeah.
steal your own name? That's just awful.
Dr. Karen, if I could figure that out with you, I wish. And like I said, once again, all I could do is just kind of step back and just realize there was a purpose greater than me, more spiritually, as to why that had to happen. I don't know. I just know that it's given me even more fire. Maybe that's why even more fire to say, I'm the little guy. I'm here to fight for the little guy, for their patient doctor bond, the little guy trying to fight this big company. And to be quite honest, Dr. Karen ran out of money to fight it, kind of like they said we would. So I just had to say, what is the bigger thing? Like it was when I went through that near death thing. And the bigger thing was to figure this out, wrap this up, may not win this particular war, but I want to win all the little battles going forward, which is once again making sure that everyone out there watching and listening has a miraculously beautiful, immaculate patient-doctor relationship that extends their health journey.
Well, I thank you for persisting and continuing along the
Sure,
journey.
sure.
And, sometimes our ancestry really is relevant in terms of what we do today. And you were talking about the Native American roots. And as you know, my family is similar. We have roots on both sides in the Cherokee traditions and so on. And I'm very much an alternative medicine person.
Mhm.
And I remember when I was trying to decide whether I was going to be a psychologist or psychiatrist, I purposefully chose psychologist because I knew I didn't want to just be prescribing pharmaceuticals in terms
Yeah.
of my practice and working with people.
Hmm.
And if I ever was on the truly physical medicine side, I would definitely go into a more naturopathic approach or some
Hmm.
kind of,
Hmm.
natural healing would be more how I think as well. So let me ask about this. To what extent have you even studied some of the Native American traditions and maybe incorporated some of the thinking about that in the natural work that you do as far as healing?
One of the things on the Native American side, and it's interesting because a lot of the kind of spiritual beliefs as far as what life is and what life's purpose is on the Native American side of things is very similar to that in Buddhism as well. A lot of similar as a lot of religions or cultures kind of borrow from one another. And so a lot of it for me is kind of being at one with nature is a big part of what I speak about as far as, or what I do as far as grounding, taking in nature during those times. Very Native American sort of a pastime or sort of thing to do to kind of conjure those powers, for lack of a better word, those inner powers that we all have within ourselves. One of the things I talk about a lot on this, Dr. Karen, which kind of comes from that thinking is I always talk to everyone about, in a sense, imagining how they could heal themselves. I say this because on the Western side of things, when we do these studies, placebo trials, you can see some people 20% can get better on placebo. So when I think about that, and I have people who have dis-ease, or some will say disease, but those who have dis-ease, as I will call it, there is the power within ourselves to almost have an exercise to where you are meditating and thinking through how to heal oneself. It may sound interesting, it may sound hokey and so forth. It's in addition to what we're doing, but it's that mind helping you to focus on what healing of that site would be, wherever the site is that they say there's dis-ease or challenges, and adding all of that power, really, of positivity into the healing journey as well. So that's kind of how I bring out kind of the Native American credo, mixed in with Buddhism and things of that nature that once again talk about the spirit of the human.
One of the things that you're sort of making me think about is this whole notion, from a Christian perspective, about how we are fearfully and wonderfully made by God, and how that when He placed us on the earth, it was with a stewardship mission that we were to really take care of the earth, and that there's this part about living in harmony with what
Hmm.
God has created. That includes us, the animals, the plants, and everything, and just having some respect all across the way in that. And so I think that that is very Native American to sort of realize that we're not the only ones on the planet.
Yeah,
There are others here on the
I
planet with
agree.
us. We flow together in a lot of ways. So thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you can still at least access your history and now use your name, Dr. Redcross, on the show. Yay!
Yes, yes, we're gonna do that. I'm ready now.
All right, that's good. So let me ask this. How did your family of origin and your upbringing prepare you for what you are doing now? What did you learn from your parents? What did you learn from your broader family?
Oh gosh, so everyone, I mean, you talk about fortunate and blessed. I mean, I think we all feel this way, but my mom and dad are my best friends. Like I mentioned before a few times on the show, I'm an only child. And so, I was taught so many different things. My mom, school teacher, hardworking, able to spend a lot of time with her, understanding the importance of education. My dad, he kind of ran a refrigeration supplier company as the manager there. Once again, hard worker and the smartest man I've ever met in my life without a college degree or what have you. And so I just learned so much about persistence, so much about hard work, so much about love. There wasn't anything that was off limits to talk about with my mom and dad, with each one of them sharing each of their gifts with me so that I can kind of have the fortunate ability to cherry pick which ones would, kind of came into my belief system and who I was as a person. So I think I was brought up with, once again, the importance of hard work, dedication, and really of service. That even back then it was interesting, even though it was just us at the dinner table, we talked a lot about how to make other people's lives better or what they were doing in their jobs and lives and who they thought they impacted. And I didn't, maybe I was listening differently even as a child and didn't realize that, my mom and dad were such stewards of service as well. And it kind of through osmosis kind of seeped over to me.
Yeah, you were sort of like raised in the ether of the surface kind of an ethic. And so that just makes perfect sense to me that in fact you would also adopt that as well. So how are you paying things forward to the next generation with your own family and with your children?
So I'm fortunate enough to have a set of twins who just started college, and just to see that growth, that maturation, and the ability to pay it forward. It's one of those things where I do a lot, as you had mentioned before, by the NAACP, that I was able to get that youth award, and so the youth is something that's always been so important to me because I remember, as I mentioned, I was the only doctor in my family, and so. I never thought I could achieve that. And not because my mom and dad didn't think I could either. It was just something that just I didn't know. You just didn't know. But I realized that a lot of the programs my mom put me in, my mom and dad, there's in science enrichment programs and these things they exposed me to, they were all youth groups. They all were impactful for me. And they were something that I like to be a part of as well. To that young child that was me back then, later understood what it took to put in the work, what it took, even if you didn't see it, even if you didn't know it, that it can be, that it's there. It's part of that same message of empowerment that I love to talk about.
That's wonderful. And so I'm imagining that your children are blessed by what you're sharing with them and also what their grandparents are sharing with
Oh,
them
yeah.
too, is passing that down through you as well. So tell us a little bit about your book, Bond, the Four Cornerstones of a Lasting and Caring Relationship with Your Doctor. Who will benefit from this book and what's the main thesis?
Well, look, and it's funny. You'll hear other authors, and they'll come out and say, "Yo, everyone benefits." But I'm being honest with you guys. Everyone would benefit from this, and not just because I wrote it. I talk about four important things that all of you deserve: trust, respect, empathy, and communication with your doctor, and how I know that that increases your life experience and your life here on this beautiful earth. And so with Bond, I go through kind of how you things that you can use to speak to your doctor about or how you should make sure those four things are there to make sure that you have the relationship that I think all of you deserve. Now, on average, all of you are on average are getting about 7.5 minutes with your doctor. So that's why you feel the way a lot of you do when you feel like you get the rush out the door and you're like, what just happened? Like, I still don't understand what I want to do. And so that's why bond was so important when I was able to have that experience to sit and think about what people really needed and what I felt was missing in healthcare.
So, in a sense, it's empowering the patient because if you read the book, then you'll have some strategies for how you can, first of all, assess if you have a doctor who is open to the process. And then, secondly, how you can invite more respectful process into a mutual relationship. You give them some strategies for how to do it.
Absolutely. Along with some stories kind of behind the curtain with specific patients and some things that may look like some of you when you hear the story and how we navigated that and what it was about and why it was so impactful to mention in the book.
That's wonderful. A lot of people are just not prepared to really speak to their doctor in that limited 7 minute time when the
Mhm.
doctor's also trying to figure out what's going on with them and to really navigate for this better patient doctor relationship. So for you to sort of jumpstart it and give them a head start on it because you know what the doctor's dealing with and you
Mhm.
know what they're dealing with. And
Absolutely.
so you kind of bridge it, if you will. And so I
That's
think
right.
that's really fabulous. So I know you're also working on a next book. So what's the
Yeah.
next book about?
So the second book should be out soon, everyone. And this one is called The Bond Blueprint: The Essential Steps to the Perfect Doctor's Visit. So what I do here, everyone, is that when you see your doctor, most of the times for follow-up, they're 15-minute slots. And so what I do here, Dr. Karen, is I talk about what to do at every minute of that 15 minutes to make sure that you go in with a strategy. And so what I do is I also put in some sheets for you, pre-sheets that you should be thinking about before the visit, and then some sheets kind of when you're in the visit, and sheets also at the end of the visit to see how things went. Look back. Is this appointment that was fruitful? So we're coming in with a strategy here, Dr. Karen. We're going to make sure that all of you out here watching or listening, you're going to be ready for this appointment. You're going to get that important V word, value, out of your doctor's visit to make sure that it leads to your life experience being improved and enhanced. And so that's what the second book is all about, blending the Bond series together.
It's really funny because as you were talking about that, I'm laughing because some people in my family laugh at me because when I'm going to the doctor, I have my notes, I have my
Love it.
strategy already
Love
outlined.
it.
And I say to myself that when I get in there, I want to make sure that I ask this, ask that, get this, get that. And I'm
Love it.
maximizing the time because I know the clock is ticking. So
Absolutely. I love it. I love that. Good for you. So you'll get this book when it's out. You'll understand exactly why I wrote it that way.
I certainly will understand because that's what I do to make sure I'm getting value out of my appointments. So I'm glad that you're sharing with other people how they can do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So, how can people get a hold of you? Let's say someone wants to consult with you, maybe about their situation, what's going on with them medically. They want some advice and counsel. So, tell us how they can reach you and also tell us a little bit about what the limitations are of your current practice. Because when you're working across different geographical territory, I know clearly in my field of psychology, there are limitations about what we can
Sure.
do across boundaries. Some things we can do and some things we can't. So talk about that a little bit and how people can reach you.
Well, look, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, look, a lot of people already reach out to me on social media, whether they've seen shows that I've done or that sort of thing. So, my Instagram, Facebook is at Dr. Ken Redcross, LinkedIn, Ken Redcross MD, my website, which is drkenredcross.com, and I'm revamping that. So, you guys will see a nice, beautiful site there where appointments can be made as well. And so all of those are great ways to reach out and just start the conversation. One of the things I've been doing, Dr. Karen, that's really unique, and I can do things over different areas, as you mentioned before, if this is consulting, meaning I'm giving advice and direction, not writing scripts, not doing things that are doctorally as a primary care. This is advice and direction. So luckily, I'm able to impart that. And one of the things that I found so valuable that I've been doing for patients here in New York with scheduling is I go to them to their appointment to make sure, especially the elderly, so that they know the doctor knows why they're there, what's been done ahead of time. The patient can hear with me there. The doctor converses with both of us so that I can make sure that that patient leaves and understands everything for me to give the family a call and says, hey, this is what we talked about and this is where we're going. So these are things that I can do in my consultancy. That particular piece obviously is the New York and surrounding areas. But the point is that I'm able to be a lot of different places and really impact and improve your lives with what I'm able to share from my 20 years of experience.
I love that. I love the
Yeah.
fact that you can go to the appointment. You can understand what the other
Oh,
physician is saying. You can translate. You can make
yep.
sure that they get the value out of the appointment that they need and then inform the family on the back end.
Yeah.
I know in my family, I've often played that role because as a psychologist, and if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's in the hospital, and we used to have to advocate for people as
Right.
psychologists as well. And so I'd get in there, I'd know the questions to ask the physicians and so on and so forth, and to find out what was really going on, know what
Hmm.
the options and choices are that we had, and then inform the family. So that role of someone to being that bridge person is really crucial. And as you said, especially for someone who is elderly and may not be able
Absolutely.
to understand all of those matters that they have to address. So that's a
Absolutely.
tremendous service. And thank you for doing that. I didn't even
Sure.
know you did that. I knew you
Yeah.
made house calls, but now you go to
Yeah.
doctor's visits too.
Yes.
Oh, this
Yes.
is just wonderful. Okay. So, Dr. Redcross, you have shared so much value and wisdom in this meeting today. And so I want to ask you, what additional words of wisdom do you want to leave with my community of corporate business executives?
Well, look, I want the business executives, I mentioned before at the top of the show, no matter what, where we all are, we're all going to be a patient at some point. And so I want everyone here to recognize and remember that you matter. You're the boss. You come into the doctor. Yeah, you guys haven't seen my logo. If you come to my site, you'll understand a little bit of my logo. My logo is the lowercase dr, Ken Redcross, and that lowercase is intentional. It's intentional because I'm showing deference to the patient for trusting me with their care. I'm showing deference that even though I'm the physician and I'm here in the connection, we're together. We're partners. So it's almost in a sense bowing down to you trusting me and us taking this journey together. And so I say that to business leaders who would be patients at some point as well, and also the business leaders to impart the importance of the EQ, the feelings, the connection, the communication, the love of whatever your business is, and imparting and spreading that to your customers each and every day. And that's what I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to do. And I hope millions, millions more.
That is wonderful counsel. And I know that's part of your success formula, and it certainly will help the business person as well. You've got to care about the people that you're working with and
Yeah.
that you serve. And it is better in partnership because each partner is bringing different gifts,
Mhm.
different abilities, different perspectives. And when you put it together, you end up with something greater. That whole adage about the whole is greater than the sum of the
Mhm.
parts. So thank you so much
Absolutely.
for sharing that wisdom. Thank you, Dr.
Oh,
Redcross, for being with me today. I really appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate you. And I hope that people recognize you're sharing something that is so profound. They can start to create this in their lives too, and finding the right providers and calling you up and get a little consultation.
I'm here for you. I mean it. Try me. Say hello. People, it's funny, Dr. Karen, I get calls or someone who says, you may not remember me. I met you in Phoenix 2 years ago. You told me I could reach out. I'm like, okay, let's talk. What's going on? So I love it. I mean it. And try me. You'll see.
I love it too. So thank you so much for being open, caring, and genuine in
Oh,
that offer.
thank
All
you.
right, so today I'm going to close our show out with a number of different Bible verses. And the first one is First Covenant, which is Psalm 103. And this is verses 1 through 5. And it says, Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your iniquities, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from destruction, who crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercies, who satisfies your mouth with good things so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. So we know that behind every good and perfect gift is our God. And I'm so blessed to read that and to acknowledge that God even cares about healing our diseases, and he works through the physicians and the others who he's placed on the earth with this talent. So that's the first reading. And then I'd also like to read Matthew 9, and this is going to be verses 35 through 36. This is a scene in the life of Jesus so that we know what was the heart of Jesus in all of these things as well. And so this says, then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them because they were weary and scattered like sheep having no shepherd. So Jesus, the great shepherd, he came also with healing for sickness and for disease. And so you want to remember that Jehovah is Jehovah Rapha, the healer. You want to remember that Jesus is the great physician, and in partnership with those on earth who have been gifted to be the healers, the physicians, we have better health, we have a better life, and we want to thank God for that. So be blessed, walk in wellness and in health, and reach out to Dr. Redcross when you need to add a little bit more. See you next time. Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, and I am with Pastor Ben Anderson, the Executive Director of Solid Rock Community Development Corporation, and they are doing fabulous works in the Southeast community of Colorado Springs. And one of the initiatives is the Food Security Initiative. And we know how important it is for families and children to have healthy food. So, Pastor Ben, tell us what you're doing.
We operate in a food desert, and one of our initiatives is the food security program, which we have. We serve approximately 2,500 residents per month that go through our food center. We have a drive-through the second Friday of every month. We're currently in the process of building an aquapod farm the land has been donated to us by a school district. The aquapod farm will produce enough produce that we can serve our residents and serve our restaurants also that operate in Southeast Colorado Springs.
You know, Pastor Ben, some people may not know what an aquapod farm is. Can you say a brief word about that?
The aquapod farm is how you grow produce with fish and water. When there's a lack of land in urban areas, most cities are turning now to aquapod farms to grow produce without the benefit of having land.
Thank you so much, Pastor Ben, for sharing with us what you're doing. You're doing great work to encourage health in the Southeast Colorado Springs community. And those of you listening, if you want to donate and participate, go to solidrockcdc.com. That's solidrockcdc.com. You've been listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. And I want to give a special thanks to jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan for granting us permission to use his gifted music on our show. Thanks for listening, and remember to go to my website, transleadership.com, for more strategies, insights, and leadership resources.